Hey folks, today we're going to learn how to work with environment variables in PowerShell. I'll be doing this snip on Windows, however you can follow along with PowerShell Core on Mac or Linux. Just be aware that the environment variables will differ a bit on those operating systems. One of the ways you can read and modify environment variables in PowerShell is with the environment provider. This experience is similar to other providers like the registry or file system providers. You can see the environment provider with Get-PSProvider. As you can see, we have a provider for environment with a PS drive of env, or env, for the environment variables. You can see that PS drive as well by running get-psdrive. You can list items in the environment PS drive by using the commandlets that contain the item noun. Using Get-ChildItem, we'll go ahead and look at the value of the computer name environment variable. Once we run it, we can see the current value of the computer name environment variable. Due to the fact that environment variables do not have children, both Get-Item and Get-ChildItem will return the same output. Since we're currently in a file system PS drive, we can change our location to the environment PS drive. This way we won't need to specify the env / in our commands. Now if we want to list the computer name environment variable, we can do so without including the env /. To list all the environment variables, we can simply run Get-ChildItem in the root of this drive. You can also view environment variables using the expression parser in PowerShell. To use the expression parser for environment variables, you would use $env, $ indicating a variable, and env being the name of the PS drive. Using this syntax, we can look at the value of computer name. This is one of the more common ways people tend to access environment variables in PowerShell. Now we'll look at changing environment variables with PowerShell. When you change an environment variable in PowerShell, it'll only affect the current session. Using the path environment variable as our example, we'll add a new directory path to the path environment variable. Before we do, we'll go ahead and take a look at the current value of our path environment variable. A quick note, paths in the path environment variable are separated by semicolons. I've added the dash split on semicolons to make the output easier to read. Now we'll add a new directory path to the path environment variable. We'll add ctemp. You can see this change reflected if we view the value of path again. ctemp is now at the bottom of the list. Let's restart the PowerShell integrated console in VS Code. You'll see once we do and redisplay the value of the path environment variable, the new path we added is no longer there. As you can see, our path is no longer present. As we saw earlier, we can also make these changes using the environment PS drive and the item commandlets. We'll use Get-Item to display the value of the path environment variable. We can now use setItem to modify the value of the path environment variable. We'll add ctemp back in. And now using the Get-Item command again, we can see our change. Now we'll use our PowerShell profile to work around environment variables, resetting each time we restart PowerShell. Like before, we're going to add ctemp to our path environment variable, and as you can see, it's currently not present. We'll edit our PowerShell profile and add a line that will update the path environment variable when we start PowerShell. Since we're using VS Code as our editor in this snip, we'll go ahead and make the change here. We'll save our PowerShell profile and go ahead and restart our PowerShell integrated console again. Now when PowerShell loads and our profile loads, it will update our path environment variable to add the ctemp path to it. Now that we restarted PowerShell, when we view the value of the path environment variable, we can see ctemp at the bottom. You can also create and delete environment variables with PowerShell. We'll use the new item commandlet to create a new environment variable named TextSnips. Now that it's created, we can see it and its value. We'll go ahead and delete it now, and as you can see, it's gone. PowerShell stores some of its preferences in environment variables. When we view the value of PSModulePath, we can see all the locations PowerShell will search for modules on the system. We can add a new path to the PSModulePath environment variable. Again, for this example, we'll add ctemp. Now if we were to put PowerShell modules into ctemp, PowerShell would be able to locate and import them. Much like the path environment variable, the settings don't persist unless you use some of the methods in this snip to make it persistent. You can also use the .NET System.Environment class to view and change environment variables. Using this method is an alternative to changing them persistently that doesn't involve modifying your PowerShell profile. Using the static method getEnvironmentVariables, we can view all the environment variables. You can also use the getEnvironmentVariable static method to view the value of a single environment variable. The static method takes two parameters, the first one being the environment variable to view, and the second one being the scope, either user or machine. To view the path environment variable for the user, we specify path and user. And to view the path environment variable for the machine, we'd specify path and machine. We can use the System.Environment setEnvironmentVariable static method to change and update environment variables as well. We'll update our user's path environment variable to add ctext snips to the path. First, we'll get the current value of the path environment variable and store it in a PowerShell variable. Now we'll use the setEnvironment variable and append the new path to the end. Similar to before, the first parameter is the environment variable to update, the second parameter is the value to change it to, and the last parameter is the scope. Now we can see the new path of ctext snips added to our path environment variable. Even when I restart PowerShell, using this method the changes will persist. Since I'm not running as an administrator, if I try to change an environment variable for the machine, I'll get an error. Keep this in mind if you need to make a change to an environment variable that's under the machine scope. If you ever get stuck, there's a detailed About Help file which covers everything we've talked about in this snip and a little more. Now you have the tools you need to tackle environment variables with PowerShell.